Honest question, everybody. If the next-gen consoles launch next fall to winter, let's say November of 2027, who among you is buying that for, let's say the average price, I'll be conservative, I think it's going to be more than $1,000, but let's say $999. Who among you, just say yes if you're buying it, no if you're not. Okay? We're going to let this scroll and see where you're at. Me? Close enough. Buying it? Okay. Okay. No. Me? Yes. No. No. I see a Jesus. I see a good number of no's. Like a shocking number of no's. That's crazy. Granted, across both platforms, we have like what? I don't even know, like 2,000 people in here, 2,000 plus people in here. We have a good number of people in here. 2,200 people in here. Jesus. We, I think that we're seeing pretty clearly that there's not exactly a lot of excitement. I've said that the biggest problem for the games industry right now is that normally next-gen console launches have excitement and anticipation. Right now, there's dread. Right now, people are just bracing for how stupid expensive it's going to be and how they're going to take away controllers out of the box because they need to save money and they're, not going to pass the savings on to you. It's just going to be $1,000, but no controller. How it's going to have, 128 gigs of storage because storage is expensive. Like, also all digital, no physical. Like we're just braced for nothing but bad news, right? Well, this is all stacking up at a time where these console manufacturers are seeing pretty horrifying red flags everywhere. A gaming analysis firm just did a whole rundown that was reported on by gamesindustry.biz, where they looked at the performance and projected performance of these consoles through the end of this year going into next year and what that would suggest for next generation console performance. And it is abysmal. Like, horrifyingly bad. Game console shipments expected to decline 19.5% to 33.9 million units in 2026. Quote, the market faces a compounding problem. Hardware that's either too old or too expensive for all consumers or for consumers, and a thin software slate outside of a handful of tentpole releases. It is kind of the 1-2 punch that really kills any momentum for gaming hardware. And right now, we're also in this weird spot where nobody wants to buy a PlayStation or an Xbox because they're really expensive. And we're also in this weird spot where we are allegedly close to next generation. So if you've still not by this point bought a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, it's pretty tough to justify unless you really do just want to get one for GTA 6. And there are going to be some people like that, but it's really hard to justify getting it at this point, if you don't have one yet. And you add on to that there's not really a massive lineup of tentpole, specifically like exclusives that are going to push you into the console. There's just not much reason to do it, especially with stuff going day and date to PC with third-party publishers and everything nowadays. Other publishers like Square Enix are trying to move away from exclusive console deals for things like Final Fantasy, and it just seems like this is the way things are now. What they say, quote, is game console shipments are expected to fall 19.5% this year to 33.9 million units. A report from S&P Global Market Intelligence Kagan attributes this decline to higher console prices implemented to address the ongoing RAM and storage crisis, which is making consoles less affordable for consumers. This decline reverses the gains following last November's Switch 2 launch, which had increased global console shipments by 13.5% to 42.1 million units. S&P's console forecast, compiled in July of 2026, includes only home gaming consoles from Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. The data firm projects console shipments will fall to about 27.1 million units by 2027, with a gradual recovery to 37.4 million units by 2030. Quote, a critical assumption underlying our forecast recovery period later in the decade is that the component crisis eases sufficiently by 2028 to allow Sony and Microsoft to bring next-gen hardware to market at price points in the $600 to $800 range. So again, their analysis assumes that Sony and Microsoft cut costs, because what's guessed right now is that in 2028, the consoles, or 2027, if PlayStation follows through on their plans, they will launch in 2027 at $1,000 probably for the PlayStation 5, or PlayStation 6 rather. Probably more. Let's be honest. It's probably like 1,200. And this analysis assumes that they cut prices to get down to $600 to $800. Now, do I think Sony will willingly lower prices? No. Do I think Microsoft, with Asha specifically trying desperately to regain market share, do I think she could see price cuts and sales and stuff? I think that's much more likely. I don't think Herman is going to cut costs or do anything unless he's absolutely forced to. But if you get to a situation where the PlayStation 6 is $1,000 or is $1,199 or something like that, and then this Project Helix goes from a launch price of $1,199, but then they cut it to $999. And then they cut the price again to $899. And they cut the price again to $799. Then I think Sony's got to sit up and start cutting costs and tightening margins. Because at that point, like, what's your excuse? Do you really think the average gamer is going to buy your console for 50% more just cuz? Probably not. Probably not. So, but again, they're assuming that they're getting prices down to $600 to $800 by 2029 and 2030, which is a stretch. Like maybe I would love for that to be the case, but that's a stretch. And it's safe to assume if the prices don't drop to that range in that time frame, that these numbers are even worse because there's no rebound or recovery. Quote, for now, the market faces a compounding problem. This is what we described earlier, that prices are too high and there's not a lot of tentpole releases and a macro environment that keeps any meaningful price relief off the table. This is part of their forecast where you can see hypothetical series successor in the form of Xbox is the red, the dark brown orange is the hypothetical PlayStation 6, and the Switch 2 is seen here. So they're anticipating a spike of Switch 2 sales in 2028 because of some big launches that are expected around then. I think, if they get another Mario, if they get another Animal Crossing, you could see massive sales spikes for those. Those things sell ridiculously well. Same with like big Zelda releases and things like that. But notably for 27, they're expecting it to drop even further. But this is fascinating. They really are projecting that the PlayStation 6 is going to continue widening its margin, which it might, but I think that you got to really ponder the significance of the burning of goodwill that PlayStation's been doing. You cannot burn as much goodwill as they've been without some sort of consequence. Like, I just don't think you can. I'm being real. Like, I think that there is going to be an impact. A lot of these people, I think, are going to be leaving for PC. And we saw it in chat. A lot of people saying, I don't think I'm doing $1,000 for a console. Like, that's really tough to justify. Why would you? Why would you? I think that this becomes much more compelling. But you can see just in terms of overall volume, how we're talking like eventually hoping to recover to 2020 levels of console units. We're not even talking about, fully beating it. We're just talking about the ideal situation is by 2030 getting back to where they were in 2020. S&P forecasts the Switch 2 sales of 17.1 million units in 2026 comparable to the original Switch's second year performance and similar to the Wii. Nintendo's latest full year results project Switch 2 sales will decline 16.9% to 16.5 million units in its second fiscal year after launch, alongside a $50 price increase impacting sales. S&P notes that compounding matters is the lack of a clear software tentpole in the near term, since the major title Pokemon Wind and Waves will not launch until late 2027. And it doesn't sound like they think that something like Dusk Bloods is going to move a lot of units, which is interesting. PlayStation 5, sixth year. PlayStation 5 shipped 17.1 million units across all models in 2025, a 15% decrease year on year. And they expect shipments to decline further to 13.2 million units in 2026. Due to the ongoing RAM crisis, Sony increased prices for all PS5 models in April of 26. The base PS5 rose from $550 to $650, digital from $500 to $600, and the Pro from $750 to $900. Barbour noted these figures are challenging for consumers considering a 6-year-old device, and the gap between PS5 and PS4 sales is already negative and widening. He also questioned whether the highly anticipated release of Grand Theft Auto 6 will be compelling enough to offset the higher price, even with a strong demand for compatible hardware. Quote, that framing does not inspire confidence for 2027 or beyond. Our forecast models a potential PlayStation 6 launch in 2028, contributing 4 million units in its first year and scaling up to 17.2 by 2030. This is what's really interesting, though. Look at this. Microsoft shipped 3.2 million Xbox Series X and S consoles this last year, marking the lowest annual total on record. Quarterly shipments fell below 500,000 for the first time in the S&P's data set during Q1 of 2026. The S&P forecasts 2.5 million Xbox Series units sold in 2026, with a quote, rapid wind down towards zero thereafter. Now, I'm no business tycoon myself, but zero is not a number you want when discussing sales units of anything. I think it's safe to say that's bad. That's not what you want. Barber attributes this significant decline to, quote, an uneven first-party software library, a subscription-first strategy that did not noticeably improve hardware sales, and pricing that now puts an Xbox Series X's $100 or Series X $100 above a standard PS5. Xbox's next-generation console, codenamed Project Helix, will likely support both Xbox and PC games, as well as backwards compatibility, likely resulting in a higher price point. And every time that Sarah Bond talked about it, going back like a year or 2 years ago, she always described Project Helix as an enthusiast device, a premium enthusiast device, which at the time sounded exciting, but then prices quadrupled. Now it's less exciting because that means that if it was going to be a premium exclusively priced, like really high tier budget thing 2 years ago, before the price hikes, imagine what it costs now. That's why I think the Helix is like 1,200 plus minimum. Like I was saying, I would expect 1,200 plus 2 years ago. So imagine where it's at now. I mean, God only knows. Barber highlighted the risk that this approach could limit the console's appeal to a narrow, more enthusiast-oriented audience. S&P predicts the next Xbox console will sell roughly 2 million units in its launch year, scaling to 7.3 million by 2030. Again, not exactly what you want. Again, that's 7 million compared to 17.2 from PlayStation in the same time frame. They're anticipating 4 million units for the PlayStation 6 in the first year and roughly 2 million in the first year for the Xbox. So 2 to 1, but that's roughly what they're expecting. The actual outcome could look very different. A fully open PC platform with Xbox branding could not really resemble a console.
I have been loyal to PlayStation my entire life, with PS2 being my first console as a kid. I will be fully moving to PC for the next gen with what they have done.
I think you and a lot of people, honestly. It's just, you reach a point at the cusp of every generation where people make a choice of where they go. It's what this chart really does demonstrate it quite cleanly. Like where you hit this point, they're assuming 2028, like right here is where the next gen starts, somewhere between 27 and 28. And you can see like they have to project that there is some pivot where people slowly stop buying the previous generation PS5s and Series X's. They're anticipating that Microsoft probably just completely stops manufacturing and selling the Series X and S, which I think is a fair assumption. I mean, they basically already have stopped manufacturing them, but they're going to slowly stop buying the PS5s, and then they move over and they start moving these units. But this represents a choice for a lot of people to choose to go to PS6, to choose to go to the next gen Xbox, or choose to go to PC. And I think a lot of people are going to move to PC. I'm just being real. And I mean, for one, it's anecdotal. Anecdotally, my friends and the people in my friend group that have historically been console gamers, a lot of them are saying, I think now's the time to go to PC. A lot of them have been wanting to do it anyways. I mean, they're scrolling TikTok, they see viral games like Mecha Chameleon, all of their favorite streamers are playing it, and they're like, that looks really fun. I'd like to try that, but I don't have a PC. Maybe this is a reason to get one. You know, I think stuff like that probably does more to sell PCs than even, you know, PlayStation's stupid mistakes. But PlayStation's constant mistakes recently, I think, is at the very least an incentive to, it doesn't, maybe it greases the wheels a little bit. It makes it a lot easier to get the ball rolling away. You know, you would hope that they'd be trying to claw and get their hooks in you to keep you from leaving the tent that they have. But instead, it seems like recently PlayStation's like, no, please go. And they're like helping kick you out of the tent because they're just doing everything to shoot themselves in the foot. So I do think that is going to be a significant thing that happens. I think what you're expressing, where you're going to pivot to PC, I think a lot of people are. I really do. And I don't blame them. Come over to the PC side of things. The water's nice, baby. Water's nice. No paying for online. You get Steam refunds. You can buy through any online vendor that you want. You don't have to go Steam. You can emulate, hypothetically. There are, I've been told, ways to play even games that are on console. There's ways to play those on PC, I've heard. I would never do that. I would never. Couldn't even think of doing anything like that. But it's still. Still, I think a lot of people are going to do that. But there's if that there's no it's more money and no physical. Well, who's going to tell him no physical? I think the no physical thing, I don't think Sony's backing off of. I think they're sticking to it. I think Xbox also is. They've been planning to go no physical for a while. It seems like the only place that's still going to actively be doing physical media for probably at least the foreseeable term, if not indefinitely, is the Switch 2 with Nintendo. So if you really want physical media, it seems like the Switch is the place to be. On PC, though, you can actually preserve your games. Like you can actually buy DRM-free games. You can go to stores like GOG where you can buy them and there's no DRM. You actually own the software that you download to your computer. You can put it on an SSD, bring it with you somewhere else. You know, you actually can have it. So it doesn't really apply. Yes, it's not a physical disc, but you do get to actually own your games. There are ways to do it. Of course, it's on a case-by-case basis because some publishers and developers won't allow DRM-free releases of their games, but there are potentially ways, I've heard, hypothetically. But beyond that, I think it's there's also been there's been research done on the and specifically lawsuits filed against places like PlayStation for their sales strategies for how they price things, because effectively when you only have one store that you can buy anything for your hardware through, inevitably there's going to be less incentive for them to put anything on sale ever. And you see this now. I mean, I'll go to like a Walmart or a Target, you'll see a game on the shelf physically, and that physical copy is on sale for like $20. You check the PlayStation store and it's full price at $70, you know, because there's no competition. There's competition in the store. They only have so much shelf space, so they have to put this on sale because they need to replace it with the new game. So they got to get that off the shelf so that they can put the new one in its place. So they put it on sale to get it to move. Digitally, there is no incentive to ever do that. You know, there just isn't. And you could say, yeah, digitally also on PC, that's the same thing. But the difference is on PC, there's multiple marketplaces. That's what is the big problem for people being like, well, Steam also doesn't have or Steam, PC also doesn't have physical media. That's true. They're not selling CDs of the latest PC games. They're just not. I mean, maybe somewhere they are, but as far as I'm aware, that's not a common practice. But the difference is that there are countless different online vendors and marketplaces. So whether you buy through Epic Game Store or Steam, or you go to Ubisoft Store, or you go to GOG or Green Man Game or any of these other places, they're all competing with each other, and that drives costs down, which is good. Floppy disks. Dude, I wish we could get back to floppy media. Can we please? Can we please? I'd buy it. It is weird that we're now at a point where if they announced like physical media for PCs and it was like something you plug into your PC through one of the USB drives up top, and then you like get a cartridge for a game, I think people would actually buy those. I do think if they announced that like there's a new format they're doing for physical media, and that physical media, it comes on these like cartridges you buy. It's like $10 more than the digital versions. I do think people would buy them. I really do. It'd be fun. Luke Floppy Stevens. Hell yeah. That's good. Oh my God. It'd be so cool. Dude, just imagine if it was like basically like those old, Game Boy cartridges, but now it just has like a little SSD on it. It's a little more expensive, probably a lot more, honestly, nowadays, especially with how expensive NAND stuff is. But if it was even like $30 more, $40 more, and you could buy like a physical cartridge that had Red Dead 2 on it, click it in, I'd be convinced. Dude, I tried to play Red Dead 2 on a plane recently. Couldn't get the damn thing to launch because the Rockstar launcher needed to connect to the internet, and it thought because I was on a plane that I was using like a VPN, and it flagged its thing, so it refused to connect. So even though I had downloaded Red Dead 2 to play on the plane, I couldn't play it. It was ridiculous. Like, I don't remember this being a problem, but dude, it drove me crazy. They're pissing me off. He took my thing.